Festivals are not just events, they're whole destinations in themselves. Sure, there are the usual suspects like music, film, and food festivals, but have you ever heard of the really bizarre ones? We're talking about explosions, strange fights, rocket launches, and even a guy frozen in a box. Welcome to the Amazed channel. If you are deeply curious, subscribe and let's dive in. These festivals are not for the faint-hearted, but they're definitely worth checking out if you're up for an adventure. Let's dive in, shall we? The Festival of Exploding Sledgehammers, San Juan de la Vega, Mexico. Alright, hold on to your hats, folks, because this festival has got the coolest name ever. And trust me, it lives up to the hype. The locals honor their patron saint, lovingly called San Juantito, by strapping homemade bombs onto sledgehammers and pounding them into the ground. Boom! Explosions galore. Now, San Juantito was a bit of a legend, kind of like Robin Hood. He took from the rich and gave to the poor, but things got heated when he crossed paths with some local lawmakers. And that's when things took a turn for the crazy. Because, well, what better way to honor a patron saint than to strap explosives to sledgehammers and start smashing stuff up? Realism be damned, people love to get wild. Sure, there are some injuries from time to time. Someone might get the explosives ratio wrong and end up flying backwards in a cloud of dust and flailing limbs. But let's be real, the real risk is from flying shrapnel. Back in 2008, 50 people got injured by metal shrapnel, but with thousands of people showing up to partake, maybe it's worth the gamble? It's hammered down, as Reinhardert from Overwatch would say it. Frozen Dead Guy Days, Nederland, Colorado. Have you heard of the Frozen Dead Guy Festival? So, get this, it all started with this Norwegian guy named Brito Morstel. When he passed away, his grandson Trygve Boj had him transported to the US on dry ice and then cryogenically frozen in California. The plan was to build a cryogenics facility in the town of Nederland, Colorado, but when Boj got deported for overstaying his visa, the townsfolk stepped in and made sure Morstel remained frozen. Nowadays, he's kept in a cryogenic mausoleum donated by a local supplier, and a volunteer takes care of him. But enough about the frozen dude. Let's talk about the festival itself. Every March, the peeps of Nederland come together for a wild time. There's a slow-motion parade, coffin races, and even a frozen dead guy look-alike contest. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can take the polar plunge and go for a dip in the icy waters of Colorado. But wait, there's more. They've got Grandpa's Blue Ball, a ball that's held as part of the festival. And there are live music tents, a communal pancake breakfast, and even a craft brewery tent. Plus, they've got some of the craziest competitions you'll ever see, like dead salmon throwing, speed fixing a flat tire with frozen hands, and frozen turkey bowling. The Frozen Dead Guy Festival has become a cult classic over the years, with folks from all over the world making their own fan films about it. And honestly, can you blame them? This festival is off the chain and definitely not for the faint of heart. But if you're down for a good time and don't mind a little cold both figuratively and literally, then come on down to Nederland and party with the Frozen Dead Guy. Bolas de Fuego, Nijapa, El Salvador. Who would have thought that a volcanic eruption could lead to such a wild tradition? Back in 1658, Nijapa was hit hard by a volcanic eruption that left the town in ruins. But instead of mourning their losses, the locals turned it into an annual event that's not for the faint-hearted. The story goes that San Geronimo himself battled the devil with fireballs thrown from the volcano. And now, every year, the people of Nijapa attempt to recreate this epic showdown. Preparations for the festival begin well in advance. Thousands of cotton rags are wrapped in wire to maintain their shape and then drenched in kerosene. Come the night of the festival, these makeshift fireballs are ready to be lit and hurl through the air. The combatants take on a grotesquely aggressive appearance, with faces painted to intimidate their opponents. And the only protection they have are fireproof gloves to pick up the fireballs. Spectators line the streets to watch the spectacle, but beware, there's no protection for those in the crowd, and stray fireballs have been known to find their way into the throngs. Believe it or not, there are no rules to this madness, and the festival just keeps getting bigger and bigger each year. And yet, despite the lack of safety measures, there have been no serious injuries reported so far. Festival of the Steel Penis, Kawasaki, Japan. Get ready for a crazy story that's straight out of Japan, my friend. Back in the day, there was this woman who rejected the advances of a sharp-toothed demon. But this demon wasn't one to take rejection lying down. On her wedding night, he snuck up inside her and bit off her new hubby's penis. Unbelievable, right? And it gets better. The same thing happened to her second husband. By now, the woman had had enough and sought out a blacksmith who made her a steel penis. When the demon came back for round 3, he chomped down on the steel and fled in defeat. And thus, the legend of the steel penis of Kawasaki was born. Fast forward to today, and the festival is all about celebrating this wild legend while also spreading the word about safe sex and HIV prevention. They even donate the festival's proceeds to HIV research, which is pretty rad. But let's be real, the real star of the show is the parade of giant penis costumes. People of all genders pose for selfies with phallic-shaped lollipops, biscuits, and veggies. It's a super fun way to celebrate the absurdity of sex and break down taboos surrounding sexuality. And let's not forget about the food, my friend. The festival serves up a whole bunch of phallic-themed dishes, like sausage and fried noodles in the shape of, well, you know. Don't worry, though, they're not made from real penises. But if you're feeling daring, you can also try some bull testicles or horse meat skewers. All in all, the Steel Penis Festival is a totally unique and hilarious event that you've got to check out if you're ever in Japan. Just be prepared to see more phallic-shaped objects than you ever thought possible. Calcio Storico, Florence, Italy. Have you ever heard of the Florentine kicking game? That's the Giuoco del Calcio Fiorentino, a sport that even the French King Henry III said was too crazy to be a game and too intense to be a real war. They say it's the most violent sport out there, and you know it's wild when convicted criminals aren't even allowed to play. Every year in late June, the Piazza Santa Croce in Florence becomes a football field for the Giuoco del Calcio Fiorentino. The goal is to score by getting the ball into a net that runs the length of the field, but that's pretty much where the similarities with regular football end. The whole playing area is covered in sand, and there are 4 teams of 27 players each representing a different neighborhood of the city. The final game goes down on June 24th, which is San Giovanni's Day. The big man himself is the patron saint of Florence, after all. Now, here's where things get nuts. Unlike regular football, the Giuoco del Calcio Fiorentino involves some serious physical aggression. Those forwards are throwing punches, kicks, tackles, wrestling moves, and all sorts of other brutal stuff to tire out the other team. The rules prohibit a few things, like headbutting and eye gouging, and you can't gang up on one player from the other team, but otherwise, pretty much anything goes. The matches last a full 50 minutes, with no timeouts or substitutions, even if someone gets hurt bad enough to need a stretcher. Of course, a sport this wild has its fair share of controversies. In 2006, the authorities canceled the tournament for the following year after a massive 50-man brawl that ended up with all the players being taken to court on charges of violence. That's when you know things have gone too far. To keep teams from bringing in ringers just to beat up the other side, the rules were changed in 2014 to say that all players have to be born in Florence or have lived there for at least 10 years. The idea was to get people to play for neighborhood pride instead of just wanting to take out their opponents. But who knows, some folks think that kind of local pride might just add to the aggression level. What do you think? Thank you for watching. Follow for more.